Hi everybody, I am pre-recording the next couple of reaction videos. The first one, which is this one about Chandler and Janice, is going to be posted on November 3rd. And the next one about Ross's toxic traits is going to be out on November 16th. Since I have all my notes prepared ahead of time, I figured I might as well get these videos scheduled now. So I recently watched 2 YouTube videos about Chandler and Janice, one by The Take and one by T1J. They were both talking about how Chandler and Janice could have been soulmates. And did I like them as a couple? Yes, I did initially. But then, so she was pretty well embedded into the friend group until she cheated on Chandler with her ex-husband in the one with the race car bed. And I mean, I really like Janice as a character. She's really funny. In one of the comments I saw on, I think it was either the Takes video or T1J, somebody theorized that Janice could be neurodivergent because she doesn't really understand social cues like, and I mean, I can see why, because especially when Chandler is getting ready to marry Monica, Janice tries to kind of imply that they're still soulmates and that they should be together. And then in this same season, which is the season right before Monica and Chandler have their wedding, he pretends to go to Yemen to get away from her. So this is my theory on Chandler and Janice. First of all, they were dating at the very beginning of the series as season 1 and season 2, and the beginning of season 3 before she cheated on Chandler with her ex-husband and the one with the race car bed. My theory is that they met each other before the series even started. So this was before we have the pilot episode. My theory is that Janice and Chandler met at the bar, because before Central Park was a coffee house, it was a bar. And I think they met at the bar one night and commiserated because they were both lonely. And that's how they got together in the first place. So, as I have mentioned in previous videos when I have reviewed Matthew Perry's book, Chandler is a very real-life imitation of Matthew Perry, because he had a lot of commitment issues in relationships, and I really did feel bad for him because he ended up alone in real life. In the show, he marries Monica, but in real life, he didn't have anybody. And I feel like maybe if he had had somebody, he would have been able to get through his addiction and get the help he needed to get away from the people who were providing him the drugs, and maybe get him people who would actually help him and not people that would overdose him, because that's basically what happened to him. Like, he was prescribed a dose of ketamine that he wasn't supposed to have by his live-in assistant, who was also arrested with the rest of the people who provided him the drugs. So I'm glad everybody finally went to jail and that his family got the justice they deserved. All of the court cases of all of the people who were accused of killing him happened back in May and June, and all of those people are behind bars now, which I'm very happy about. So back to Chandler and Janice. As I just said, part one of my theory is that Chandler and Janice met each other before the show even started, because by season 1 and season 2, they are together. But T1J said in his video that basically Chandler uses Janice as a booty call when he's lonely, which is pretty true. But do I think they were well matched as a couple? Maybe. Do I think they were soulmates? I'm not really sure. Do I think that they were in love with each other? I don't know. I think maybe in the beginning they could have been, but then again, Chandler was so afraid of commitment that he would keep breaking up with her and getting back together with her. And if I was Janice, I wouldn't put up with that. So there's this one scene in one episode where Janice comes into Central Park with her infant son, and T1J was surmising in his video that was Chandler's baby, and that Janice was like kind of showing the baby off to like get him to commit to her. But no, I don't think that was true, because first of all, Chandler probably would have taken a paternity test to see if the baby was his. And if Janice met someone else, I think that's probably the other guy's baby, who was her husband, Gary, who she breaks up with, gets back together with Chandler, then cheats on Chandler with him. So that's what breaks them up. So this happens in season 3. And then after that, Chandler and Monica sleep together at Ross's wedding in England when he rushes into his marriage with Emily. I'm going to talk about that in my other video about his impulsivity with that. But as I have always said in my other videos, Chandler and Monica were always my favorite TV couple growing up. An interesting thing that T1J mentioned in his video is that Janice is supposed to be a parody of Fran Drescher from The Nanny. And now that I heard that, I think it really makes a lot of sense. The Nanny came out the year before Friends came out. And actually, at one point, I could do a really good impression of Fran Drescher. I don't know if I could really do it anymore. I could try. And maybe I will try to do it in a later video if I feel up to it. But, so yeah. Janice is played by Maggie Wheeler, who was on Seinfeld before she was on Friends, much like Courtney Cox was. She was in an episode in season 3 called The Fix-Up, where she plays Elaine's friend Cynthia. And Elaine, who is played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, hooks her up with George, who, I don't know if you have noticed, but George kind of has similar issues with women that Chandler does, like with commitment and stuff like that. So I have noticed that their characters are kind of similar. At least Chandler is able to overcome his commitment phobia, but George never does. I mean, he gets engaged to Susan, but then Susan dies by licking the poisonous wedding invitation envelopes. So the reason why I bring up the fact that Maggie Wheeler was on Seinfeld dating George as Elaine's friend Cynthia is because Jason Alexander later appears in an episode of Friends where so in this episode is called the one where Rosita dies, where the Barca lounger chair that Joey names Rosita gets broken. So in the side plot, Phoebe is working at a call center, which, I mean, in that episode, I could really relate to Phoebe because working at a call center was my first job out of college. I hated that job, and it didn't work out very well for me. But Phoebe works at a call center giving people customer service help with ink toner. And in this episode, Jason Alexander calls into the ink toner hotline that Phoebe is working at, saying that he's been at the same dead-end job for 10 years and that he's depressed because nobody likes him. And when Phoebe is talking to Jason Alexander's character, who's named Earl, on the phone, she says Chandler because she thinks that she's talking to Chandler. But it's not. It's a different person. Seeing that episode of Friends after knowing how similar Chandler's character is to Matthew Perry made me realize that George and Chandler have very similar character personalities. And bear in mind, these were two totally different shows that were on around the same time. Maggie Wheeler appeared in season 3 of Friends as Cynthia. Courtney Cox plays Jerry's girlfriend, Meryl, in season 5, episode 17, The Wife, which aired on St. Patrick's Day of 1994. So Courtney Cox was very busy because she was on Seinfeld, she did Ace Ventura, and then Friends started in September. So she was so busy that year. That was a good year for her because she did a lot of great things that year. Primarily starting on Friends. But that's why I think that Friends and Seinfeld share a universe, because of how these characters were on the same show these characters were on each other's shows. These actors were on each other's shows in various seasons. I don't know if that was because, I'm guessing it's because that Seinfeld and Friends were both filmed at Warner Brothers Studios in California. That's my guess. So Seinfeld started airing in 1989 and ran until 1997. So, Friends started, I believe, in like season 3 or season 4 of Seinfeld. So that's probably how Maggie Wheeler got on Seinfeld. I mean, she probably got on Seinfeld first, and then maybe the Friends directors saw her in Seinfeld, and that's how they cast her as Janice. I really don't know. I'm just guessing. So, as we all know, Chandler marries Monica. Their wedding is very romantic. But Janice keeps popping up in all of these other random episodes. Like, she's in the episode where Rachel and Chandler are getting their nails done at the nail salon. She appears in the one where Rachel has a baby, part 1, and she's in the same hospital room as Rachel giving birth to her baby. And then she appears in the one with the fertility test at the same fertility clinic that Monica and Chandler are at. And she keeps saying to Chandler, "I'm your soulmate." But by this point, I just think the fact that she keeps showing up everywhere gets really annoying, and it almost seems like she's like following Chandler around and not leaving him alone and accepting the fact that she's married. So in season 10, when Monica and Chandler are in Westchester looking at their house, Janice shows up at the house they're looking at, because she is looking at a house across the street. And she's like, well, who do you know? What do you know? I didn't expect to see you here. And Chandler makes a joke like, I didn't expect to see you, but it's not like I run into Beyonce all the time either. So in this episode, it's called The One with Princess Consuela, season 10, episode 14. So Chandler jokingly says to Janice, we should have an affair, and Monica and Sid, who is Janice's husband at this period, because I guess she's been divorced with Gary for a while. He says Monica and Sid don't have to know. Well, of course, nothing happens because Monica and Chandler end up together. But here's the thing. I love Monica and Chandler. As I said earlier, they're one of my favorite couples on Friends, but let's be realistic. Richard was Monica's soulmate, and their marriage didn't work out because they wanted different things. And Janice and Chandler were probably soulmates, but the timing was always off in their relationship too. If, for example, they had decided to go ahead with the affair that they were alluding to in season 10, episode 14, the one with Princess Consuela, that would mean that Monica and Chandler would get divorced, and Monica would marry Richard, and Chandler would marry Janice, and they would still be able to technically raise Erica and Jack because Janice lives across the street from Monica and Chandler. So caring for the children would be really easy, and that would expand the universe of kids within the Friends universe, because when we leave in the finale, Ross still has his son from his first marriage to Carol, who by the time season 10 happens, I think he was probably like 8 or 9. Emma was born at the end of season 8. So she was 1, because she turns 1 in the one with the cake, which is in season 9. And then obviously Jack and Erica are adopted in the finale. So if going by this example, if Chandler and Janice were to go ahead with their affair and to get divorced from their spouses, then Monica and Chandler would technically still be able to, as I was saying, Monica and Chandler would be able to still raise Jack and Erica because Janice would be across the street. So, did you guys like Janice as a character? Do you think she could be neurodivergent? Because this thought never occurred to me until I watched this YouTube video the other day. And Janice didn't even cross my mind in my original video about characters from Friends and Gilmore Girls that could be neurodivergent. So, just weigh in the comments. Have a great night. Thanks for tuning in.